From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. I'm on the road again after a long hiatus of being in the studio. It was so weird to set up this morning's show. One, because I'm pre-recording it. Obviously, I'm at the Teammate CISO Village in South Florida. Day one, an absolute success. Teammate definitely knows how to put on a CISO Village. I will give him credit. Day one production, just the logistics, the just everything around it, the networking, spot on. It was just absolutely magnificent. So, packed show this morning. We're going to get right into it. And guess what? A Teammate also knows how to book resorts, because in my room here in Florida, I've got a double espresso. I've got an espresso machine. Like, I literally have an espresso machine. And for those who know, like, who follow the show, know that I travel often, know that when a hotel has an espresso machine, like 5-10 points, like, just goes up. My double espresso, whatever you're drinking this morning, let me know in the comments. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. So, good coffee. Let's get the ball rolling here. We've got a cyber attack to report on United Natural Foods, which is America, or North America's largest publicly traded wholesale distributor, forcing to shut down some systems after a cyber attack. The company, based out of Rhode Island, operates 53 distribution centers and delivers fresh and frozen products to over 30,000 locations across these United States and Canada, including supermarkets, chains like Whole Foods, and so many others. In an 8K filing with the SEC and in a press release on its website, the company disclosed that they discovered a cyber attack that took place on Thursday of last week, June 5th, forcing it to take some of their systems down. Now, at this time, they're not saying what's behind the attack or anything like that. Again, we know these types of attacks typically go after these supply chain companies, and this is significant. This is a disruption. We saw what happened to Co-op when they were hit with a cyber attack. Now, I don't know that this is that bad, right? But there is precedent. We saw what happened to Co-op in the UK. They had empty shelves. There were places in the country that in the UK that couldn't get food in the year 2025 because of a cyber attack. And we'll have more in the UK here in just a minute. So don't think of going anywhere just quite yet. The disclosure follows widespread reports on Thursday that the company's systems were down and employees were having their shift canceled. And again, this is one of those things where if you're going to cancel shifts, if you're going to cancel employees' shifts, you got to do it with sensitivity and with this. It's got to be part of your like game plan. It's got to be part of your playbook, right? You bring in the employees, you let them know, look, the company's going through something. We don't want this leaked at the moment. We want it tightly controlled. Y'all are all going to go home. There's no work, but you're still going to be paid for your shifts. So the employees understand that there's stability in the company. Because here's what happens when you don't properly communicate with employees. Reddit blows up. And when Reddit blows up and Glassdoor blow up, you blow up as well as a company. And that's another headache that you've got to handle at the time when you're trying to restore your systems. So something to keep in mind there. We'll know more about this as more information becomes available. We'll bring it to all of y'all, obviously. Now we go to the UK. Remember how I told you to hang on just a minute? Don't go anywhere. Well, last year there was a significant cyber attack against NHS in the UK. And that followed a bunch of issues. Well, now the NHS is saying they need 1 million blood donors as stocks remain low following the cyber attack that disrupted pathology services at several healthcare organizations in London. As a result of the inability to quickly match patients' blood types, hospitals were using more of the O-type stocks as this was the safest way to give blood. But just 8% of the population have O-negative blood. And it accounts for about 15% of all blood used by hospitals and first responders. And so now the UK has a problem. They're asking 1 million people to go donate blood. So the result of the cyber attack a year later is a shortage in blood supplies in the UK. Now, that's significant. And that just shows you the downstream impact of cyber attacks when we think about this, and speaking of CISO peers here at Teammate CISO Village on day one, we often talked about how do you manage risks and so forth. But this downstream impact is significant for organizations, extremely significant for or organizations just globally. The Arcana security extortion gang briefly relisted the Ticketmaster data from the 2024 Snowflake data thefts. So remember, Snowflake wasn't responsible for this. Ticketmaster didn't have MFA under Snowflake's accounts. Their credentials were compromised. It's better ratings when they say Snowflake, apparently. That's a thing. Maybe Snowflake is such a cool keyword because of its political annotations that people are like, we got to do this. We got to do it. Ticketmaster was the victim. Snowflake was not responsible. Just want to make that crystal clear for anyone who still thinks that Snowflake was responsible for what happened in Ticketmaster. Here's what happened. These companies all had Snowflake instance. They didn't have two-factor MFA, and their credentials were compromised, and that led to their databases getting hacked, including Santander, Ticketmaster, AT&T, Advanced Auto Parts, Neiman Marcus, Los Angeles Unified, Pure Storage, and Cylance were all part of the Shiny Hunters group. Well, now the data is getting resold. We talked about this on yesterday's show with the AT&T data getting repackaged. So one of two things is happening here, and I'm sensing a trend. Either people are buying this data really, really cheap, or the affiliates aren't getting paid. And so they're relisting the data, trying to relist it as something new in order to try to get more money out of it or get paid for what they didn't get paid the first time around. Because cybercrime, like most of business, isn't exactly an honest broker business, meaning these affiliates kind of count on getting paid. And when you don't get paid what you expected to get paid, you may have given yourself a backup of the data, and then you relist it, trying to sell it again and make yourselves a few more bucks. That's that. Or you're trying to ruin the reputation of the main ransomware group because maybe they were paid not to release the data, but you weren't given your fair share, and now you want to ruin it. We saw that happen with Change Healthcare, and there's been other cyber attacks, though none as public as Change Healthcare, where these things have happened. So something here is happening. The FBI now has a new deputy chief of cyber operations. That's Brett Leatherman, a career FBI official with a lot of cybersecurity experience, has been tapped to serve as the assistant director of the Bureau's cyber division. Leatherman said he was chosen by new FBI director Kash Patel to take over the role after Brian Vorndarn recently retired. And so Leatherman will be stepping up from a position as Deputy Assistant FBI Director for Security Operations. He has spent more than 2 decades at the FBI, working at the Cleveland and Detroit field offices before joining the Cyber Division. He was Section Chief of the National Security Cyber Operations for the FBI, where he worked on state-affiliated cyber threats with multiple U.S. intelligence agencies. It's a great, great move by Director Patel. He was just on Joe Rogan. He talked extensively about cyber warfare, by the way. It was a great day for cyber to have the FBI director sit there and talk about cyber on the most popular podcast on planet Earth. And now we see this hire. Hashtag I'm happy, right? Like I'm happy about this. I'm happy about the executive order. I feel like we're starting to get some direction from the administration. I feel like someone from the White House watched my podcast last week and was like, whoa, we're getting called out. Let's address it. And then you've had a few different orders kind of come through. Obviously, for those who don't remember, I called out the administration for the CISA layoffs and said, I don't see a cyber strategy. Is there one? And now there is. I'm not saying I'm responsible for it. Maybe it's just timing, but nonetheless, another great move in leadership here. SentinelOne said its security team spent the last 12 months deflecting a steady stream of cyber espionage and reconnaissance probes from China's Nexus threat actors, now seen targeting other cybersecurity vendors. SentinelOne said they never gained a foothold inside its network, but there were supply chain scares when a third-party contractor that handles laptop logistics for employees was briefly compromised. The technical deep dive in the company's Sentinel Labs unit documented how the same infrastructure hammered more than 70 organizations between July of 2024 and March of 2025, including a South Asian government IT agency and a major European media group, before turning reconnaissance scans on SentinelOne's own internet-facing servers. The company said campaigns relied on well-known Chinese espionage stables like ShadowPad, a modular backdoor previously tied to APT-41. Followed dozens of breached gateways from Checkpoint, Fortinet, and SonicWall. ShadowPad was also used connected to an APT cluster. The company calls Purple Haze. SentinelOne researchers found overlaps in infrastructures and TTPs between APT 15 and UNC 5174. Those included my favorite firewall on the planet, if I enjoy getting beat in the head with a rock, which I don't, Ivanti. So Ivanti 0 days were still under embargo when the attackers began chaining them. So you see there's an embargo. The vendor doesn't fix it on time. You don't get notified. And the Chinese are on it. SentinelOne warns that ongoing activity underscores a blind spot in the industry's threat model. Cybersecurity vendors themselves are increasingly high-value targets because compromising them can yield visibility into thousands of downstream customers. The latest disclosure follows a separate wave of North Korean fake worker schemes and opportunistic ransomware attacks. Again, all in all, lots happening there. Scattered Cyber, the collective cyber threat group suspected in multiple retail brands attacks in the UK, Europe, and the US, is now targeting MSPs and IT vendors as part of a new campaign to infiltrate customers of those companies. According to a report by the RelyQuest, the group has used social engineering techniques, tricking workers into providing access to these various organizations so that the attackers can gain access to credentials and even bypass MFA altogether. Scattered Spider is known for social engineering techniques. They've done this in the past. The analysis shows that around 81% of the Scattered Spider domains impersonate technology vendors. 70% of those targets were in technology, finance, and retail. RelyQuest analyzed more than 600 domains linked to them through indicators of compromise evidence. So you want to make sure if you're an MSP, you're an IT vendor, you got to tighten down ship, just like SentinelOne just did, right? They're coming after you because getting to your customers is becoming increasingly harder. They're hoping that through you, they can get to them. That's what was the kind of snowflake attack, was if we can compromise credentials and MFA isn't on it, that specific vendor, could we do it? Supply chain attacks are real. When you're part of the supply chain and people rely on you, you ought to take it extremely, extremely serious and act accordingly. This is one of those cases as well. Over the weekend, React Native ARIA packages for GlueStack were backdoored as part of a supply chain attack. The targeted React Native application development packages, some of which had not been updated in years, are highly popular, having a combined weekly download count of over 1 million. So these attacks continue here with these backdoors on React Native. ARIA is a front-end only library, doesn't execute any code in CLI or scripts, but it's still something to keep in mind of what they're targeting, where they're trying to build backdoors to potentially move laterally within this. We've talked about this on the show yesterday. We're talking about it again today because your code, these open source packages, are becoming increasingly more and more dangerous, by the way. And secure code development and secure software development, that was part of the executive order President Trump signed. It's significant because now there's no way the government is buying anything unless it's following those processes. It's coming. Start tightening ship. A critical remote code execution vulnerability that's affecting the Wazuh servers has been exploited by the Mirai botnet, according to Akamai. Wazuh is a free and open source security platform designed for threat detection and response. Its developers announced that they patched CVE 2025-24016, an unsafe deserialization issue affecting servers running versions 4.4.0 and newer prior to 4.9 or 0.1, which includes a patch. The unsafe deserialization vulnerability allows for remote code execution on the Wazuh servers. The developers explained the vulnerability can be triggered by anybody with API access or in certain configurations, even a compromised agent. There's a proof of concept exploit that even enables a denial of service attack at the time of the disclosure. Now we're seeing the botnet taking advantage of it. You want to make sure you get this patched up. Cyber Research and Intelligence Lab recently uncovered a malicious crypto phishing campaign where more than 20 malicious applications on the Google Play Store, here we go again, story that never ends, the Google Play Store, were designed to target crypto wallet users with phishing schemes. The deceptive apps impersonated well-known wallet platforms to lure users into revealing their sensitive mnemonic phrases, effectively handing over control of their digital assets. The phishing apps impersonated popular crypto wallet interfaces like SushiSwap, PancakeSwap, Hyperliquid, and Radium. And again, the idea is in Google Play, it doesn't have all of the sophistication that you would see in Apple. And so they're creating apps that with the same exact name, different developer, people wouldn't know the difference, similar logos, They take over your accounts, they take over your crypto, and you kind of see this here, and you see all the domains related to it. These are all of the apps, and we'll have them available at cyberhubpodcast.com after the show. You can see it there. And if you go to our website at cyberhubpodcast.com, you'll get a summary of the show with an action item directly in your inbox shortly after the show finishes airing. Nigeria is jailing 9 Chinese nationals for being part of an international cyber fraud syndicate. The Federal High Court of Nigeria convicted 9 Chinese nationals on Thursday, sentencing each of them to a year in prison for their roles in a cybercrime syndicate involving training and recruiting young Nigerians to commit online fraud. I mean, the Chinese are out there making a mess. I'm glad President Trump said China is an adversary, because they are, and they're all over the world. It's not just there. We're seeing them in Myanmar, in the Philippines. Every single story we cover where a cyber crime fraud, an online fraud platform, there's someone Chinese behind it, likely tied to the CCP, out there doing their dirty work. For those who don't know what the CCP is, the Chinese Communist Party. Nigerian newspapers citing an affidavit by the EFCC investigator Kayana Garba describes Operation Eagle Flush as designed to tackle a syndicate primarily led by Chinese nationals that recruit and train Nigerians' youth in cyber fraud, including dating, romance, and investment scams, and then have them target the U.S., Europe. The 9 defendants are all listed here. Were convicted after reaching a plea deal and will be deported after they completed their prison terms. They were each fined $640. If this is their idea of justice in Nigeria, man, what a way to get off. What a way. That's it for our show. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, again, with the latest cybersecurity news. Please make sure to subscribe, follow, like, share, comment. If there's any stories we're missing, let us know. Please do so. Until then, have a great rest of your day. Thank you all for tuning in. And most importantly, y'all, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.